And so it really put into perspective how important it was that we did manage to sort of tick all the boxes that we needed to tick along the way, because if we messed up at any point, it would have been an entire production that would have been either delayed or sort of put the kibosh on. It would have been a real disaster if it hadn't gone as well as it had.
So Micah has been usurped by better members of the Tastehead team today on the podcast.
Younger members too.
Absolutely. And quick round of introductions are in order then, I think. So we have Lucy, our project manager, absolute star. Let's do a round of applause. Loving that, Paddy. Loving that.
Appreciate it.
We have Paddy, junior development chef, also a star.
And quite naughty.
Sometimes.
Thank you.
And Eaman, senior development chef, absolutely a star.
Absolutely a star. Thank you very much. Thank you, guys.
Well, Dalgona. Had anyone even heard of Dalgona before this project?
Not in the format that we've had to spend a lot of time with, but I saw during lockdown there was a coffee craze that went about with like a whipped sugar that you do.
Using the instant coffee and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just everyone was doing it for a little while. So I saw that on the feed and on the YouTubes.
On the tube.
On the
and
tube.
The gram.
Yeah. all of the above, yeah.
I
all
thought
of
we
those.
had the younger members.
Well, yeah, and then Squid Game, which just exploded during lockdown on Netflix. We all watched it before the project, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I was quite late to the party.
Okay.
Everyone was talking about it in the office, and I was kind of covering my ears because I was like 3 or 4 episodes behind. But
Yeah, no, we just binge watched it. In fact, I remember it coming out, and it was the day it came out, and I didn't know anything about it. I just thought I'm just going to give this a go. So I was like one of the first to give it a go, and enjoyed it very much. And I think partly because in lockdown we needed something that was a bit of escapism and a bit different. Did you all enjoy it? You had some criticisms, I think, which isn't like you at all.
No. I would never criticise any sort of media that comes out. But no, I thought it was a good concept. It's certainly interesting. Kept my attention through lockdown.
yeah, when I got round to watching it, binged it like everyone else, I think.
I would sneak and watch episodes without my housemate. You know, you make a pact with whoever you're living with. You're like, we'll watch this together. We're in it for the long run. Yeah, I would have to click next episode. So, yeah, I thought it was pretty good.
And so then, what was it, 12, 18 months later, the inquiry comes in. A little bit different to our usual inquiries. And I think everyone's face lit up when we saw that. Fair to say that we'd had the pleasure of working on more of these kind of PR activation projects where it's not developing a retail product that's going to be on the shelves of the supermarket trying to gain sales. It's very much a kind of one-off production for some sort of media purpose, but this was very unique. I think the first thing to talk about is how we approached the project or what the brief was like, because it was so unique. And similar to when we've worked on these other PR activation projects, you have a deadline and you can't be late by a week or so, or even a day. You've got to have everything ready for that. And I think it's fair to say that we didn't have as much time as we would like, which is often the case. But yeah, do you want to talk about how we approached it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think with a similar style to our other projects, or sort of how we work across the board, we send out the brief, as you said, and we always have a stage one, which is sort of our feasibility piece. And it's just really important we do that across all projects, just so we don't leave the clients high and dry. But particularly with this one, with such a, sort of end result required at a specific time that would make or break a show, we had to know, is it feasibly possible? Is it possible? And if so, we need to let them know straight away, because we didn't want to get towards the end of, we just kept giving it a crack in the kitchen, which I think some people expect us just to sort of keep going until it sort of acts as a gated process, so both parties can feel assured that we can achieve what is required in the time.
Yeah, so there's that jumping off point when we would have liked more time to make sure that we could absolutely deliver to the brief, but we had to make a yes or no call. And we had to come together as a team and discuss it and use our expertise and sort of, to essentially do a risk assessment on if we're going to commit to this and say we can do it, what are the risks? How confident are we that we can overcome them, etc. I think, one of the risks was just the scale that we had to do this at, because it's one thing you can see people on YouTube making these,
Yeah.
and it's okay if you're doing like a handful, but we had to make thousands,
Mm-hmm.
literally. And yeah, do you want to talk, Eaman, about just the sheer scale of it and how that was a
Yeah,
challenge?
yeah, that was particularly challenging for this specific product because, like you say, if you're doing 1, 2, 3, 4, it's fine. Most people, having searched back on YouTube, like how to make them when we first started, I sort of thought, well, how are they doing them traditionally? It's literally one by one in a ladle over a candle. And so,
And some of them were even messing it up.
yeah, no, honestly, yeah, it's quite a fiddly process. It's quite artisanal. It's quite old school, a traditional recipe as well. So we thought, like, how can we take what we do day to day and sort of make it as efficient as possible, make it as effective as possible, and end up with the best result possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I had worked in factories with ingredient suppliers for honeycomb in previous development positions that I'd had. And I've been on these production lines that are dedicated honeycomb lines. So if there's any production line that could have done it, it would have been one of these lines.
Yeah.
There's no way that it could do it because you've not got the kind of the, how do I say it? Not the attention to detail, but just the ability to fine tune it as much as is needed because, you know, we're going to go into the process in a bit, but it's everything from the size, the shape, the thickness. And when you're stamping out these shapes that people have then got to be able to successfully scratch out,
Yeah.
doing that at the right time with the right pressure, as we learned, handmade was pretty much the only way that we could do it.
Which sounds odd.
Yeah.
To think that you'd get the most consistent results handmade rather than in a factory or with machines, but just it's so like the minute differences in how dense it is if you press it for a certain amount of time we'll go into obviously the process more detail, but the bubbles that
let's talk about some of the processes that we did try because we think there'll be a way to do this on on a larger scale. And so what were some of the things that we tried that didn't work?
How long have you got?
Yeah. Well, I feel probably we should say what the sort of general process is. So we'd essentially heat sugar up to a certain temperature, a mixture of sugar and glucose, because again, we found that is something that we used in the past. It provided more stability when we're trying to do bigger batches. It gave us more sort of margin for error if we were sort of doing 20 batches at once, so that you don't have to watch it like a hawk. But what we did is we would get that up to a certain temperature, allow it to cool down to a certain temperature, add bicarb of soda, mix that all through, and then here's where the trouble started, is trying to get each individual pour identical to the one before it and identical to the one that's coming after it.
And it's a timing point of view, isn't it? Because once you've mixed that batch, you haven't got very long before it continues to cook.
Yeah.
The aeration goes up and it comes down as you're within seconds. The temperature is changing because going up to 190 degrees Celsius or so.
Bring it down to 171, I think, or something like that.
Yeah. And then the drop off from that point is rapid. And as soon as it starts to get to, 110 or something, it's like you can't even work with it anymore. And it gets to that point very quickly.
Solid.
Still hot enough to burn you, but but you just can't use it anymore. So that goes in the bin.
So rather than doing them individually, one of the things that we thought about was let's do a huge sheet of it and roll it out.
Yep.
That didn't work. Do you want to go into
I
that?
feel like some of that was, I think Eaman was really the lead on the coming up with the initial base recipe.
Yeah.
Well, the one that didn't work.
The one that was, I think you got 80% of the way there and then went on holiday.
I did, yeah.
And then it was left with just Brandt and I to try and finish it off. And we tried loads of different things. And
I think my idea was I was like, we'll just do it in as they do in a factory. We'll just roll it, sort of pour it out and roll a big sheet. But roll it with what? That it's not going to stick to. And
I know, we were spraying the rolling
trying
pin
everything,
with
different materials.
oil sprays. And that was like, spreading out a whole load of the honeycomb on the table in between two guides and then rolling.
And getting the thickness, because you think, between two guides, we'll get an even thickness throughout. But you just can't with this stuff.
It just catches.
And even when we came close, you've then got the thing of cutting the outside, the disc out at the right point. Because if you go too soon, you create this sort of the cut and then it just floods back in and seals again. But if you wait too long, it's too hard and you start cracking it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was it was a tricky one. So we tried a river of the stuff between two rolling guides to get it down to uniform size. We tried weighing it into Yorkshire pudding tins. So
the
that
Yorkshire
it would
pudding
be,
tins method,
yeah.
We
So
were
that
confident with that for a short period of time.
Yeah, and then we tried to do a batch of 4, and that was enough to just show us that it didn't really work consistently.
Yeah, that was kind of weighing in, 20 grams or whatever. But by the time you got to the third one, weighing that in, the first one was pretty much set already. So you were kind of
and then getting it out of there with
a palette knife and then smashing them all.
Yeah, wasn't ideal. Wasn't ideal, and sort of getting the consistency was so key with this project. So they kept talking to us throughout the process about is it consistent? Are they all the same height? This one's slightly taller than the other one, and completely fair. Like the game needs to be completely fair for everyone. So we wanted to ensure the best possible result, the most consistent result, and like Paddy said, it's shocking that is done by hand, but you do get a knack for it as you go.
Well, and I think that's where there's a benefit that we're, as in the three of us. Sorry, Lucy, you're very good cook, but we're chefs in that we've worked in kitchens and we have that experience of when you're doing something again and again and again, there is a certain amount of just a feel for it that you get that you can't really explain, but you get an intuitive feel for it, and in the end. We tried all of these processes, which in theory would make it easier to make thousands of them on scale. But we came full circle and we ended up just having everyone having a station in the kitchen, cooking your own batch. And then I think we were getting between 10 and 12. Paddy, I think you hold the record for how many in one go?
13 in one go.
13 in one
Pretty
go.
impressive.
That's fantastic.
And how often did you do a full 13?
Once a day.
Right.
Once a day, max. We had a sort of leaderboard going on in the kitchen. We've got a mirror and we had these little chalk pens scoring out everyone's numbers per batch.
It really shined a light on.
A couple of people you'd see maybe like a 6 and then a 7 and then a 4.
So it was done for motivation purposes, but
I'd say I was at least top 50% of the 4 of us.
Well, look,
I'd say I'm in the same bracket.
Look, I think we'll come on to kind of what the actual full production was and how we got there, but I think. The thing that I just want to call out now is what the main challenges of this were, because we've spoken about the timeline, the shelf life of these things, because you've got both when you're making them, when you're packing them, they go sticky incredibly quickly. And we've got to make something weeks in advance that is going to be opened and used on the show. So that was a big challenge. We had to completely handmade them, and we made around 10,000 in the end, I think, with all of the developing the recipe, trying different methods, getting everything to be exactly where it needs, and then doing runs for the sort of trial runs that they were doing on the show. Transporting them. Yeah. I mean, this was something where we couldn't trust couriers because they're so brittle. Yeah. So people used to have to people used to have to come and hand collect them and hand deliver these boxes and transport them across London. But the biggest challenge out of all of this, and I think this is what people probably wouldn't appreciate, and we perhaps didn't at the start, is you watch the TV show, and it's like the second game in the show, right? And so you've already gone from, is it 300 and, how many people start the show? 350-ish?
456, I think, is the number, because it's the amount of money that they win or something.
That's
like that.
Right, exactly. And so you start off with 400 odd people. At the second game, you're still going to have 300 odd people, I imagine, or like they did in the show. Yeah. It's no good you getting down to 10 people after the second game. And equally, it's no good you still being left with 300 people. And so it's if the real life game show is going to follow the show, you've got to develop these in a way that you're going to have a predictable pass rate. And so you've got a predictable pass rate for just how many total contestants get through the game. But then it's no good if everyone's doing the umbrellas easily and people are struggling with the circles. And equally, it's no good if nobody can do the umbrella. Yeah. And so each individual shape we needed to be predictable that the umbrellas would be more difficult than the stars would be more difficult than the triangle, and the triangle would be more difficult than the circle.
Which one was
the most
triangle?
difficult?
I think
triangle was the easiest.
Oh, was it?
The 3 edges.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then circle, then star, then umbrella.
But we basically had target pass rates for each of them. And that is and the pass rate is not on people who have been practicing, it's on random strangers. And we actually lost sight of that because very quickly we haven't really got anybody unbiased within the team, because even the client has been trying them. So when we're making changes, we don't actually know if the pass rate's going in the right direction or not, because everyone who's trying it has already had a few goes and got some practice. Whereas we needed to have something that was going to get the target pass rate for each shape with people who had never done it before. And I think that was the real challenge, is we knew that it wasn't just about could we make thousands of these for the show. It's like, can we do it in a way that we're confident we're going to get the pass rate? And I think the relief that we got when we got the news that they'd filmed, because it was all the way up until the day of the filming. The trials were getting better, they were going well, we were confident. And when we got that news to say it had gone and all the pass rates were within target, that was a good moment.
That's great. Yeah.
A relief.
Yeah.
A few Negronis were made that weekend.
No, that's sort of why we ended up making so many. I think a good chunk of those 10K that we made went to rehearsals with paid participants, just that would show up, try and complete one, and off they go. So it's their first time trying it. It's they're getting a completely fresh set of eyes and just a genuine insight into what the pass rate would be. And how many rounds did we do of that, Lucy? We did so many.
Our December was filled with cookies, but not the usual type.
Can we? Another 200 here, 400 there.
Very unique amounts, quick turnarounds. So,
we had a busy final week before Christmas because we knew we had one more opportunity to trial. And I have to say credit to the studio for them seeing how much needed to be invested in this to get the end result. And when they were getting people to try it, we've had clients in the past where it's like, oh, we'll get friends to do it or people we know, but they appreciated, we've got to get people who haven't done it before and everything. Because, ultimately, yes, it's about having something that makes sense for the TV show. But you've got all of these contestants that want to have a fair shot at this. And it's not fair on them if it's, sort of some are easier than others, etc.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So after rounds and rounds of developing the recipe, we moved into production mode, which was producing hundreds at a time. Or thousands.
I don't think we realised we'd be working in like factory settings.
No, production mode is my least favourite mode.
You do look good in a hairnet and a beard snood, if I may say so.
In a hairnet and beard snood.
But let's talk about the kitchen, because it was a unique environment.
The environment was more humid than we're used to usually.
Yeah, so one of the sort of results of making something out of honeycomb is that you are left with a very hardened sugar pan at the end of it. It's all stuck on. It's a nightmare to clean. Best way to get rid of it, dump it into a pan of boiling water.
You mean you can't just put it in the dishwasher?
No, not if you want the dishwasher to carry on working. No.
Is this why we've just had to replace our dishwasher?
Yeah, well, among other reasons.
Tried that.
We weren't supposed to mention that.
We don't talk about the dishwasher.
So that big stock pan, boiling water constantly.
So a huge stock pan.
A pan about my size.
Rolling boil all the time.
8 hours a day.
Yeah.
The metal pans just be dropped in for 2 minutes so they can come out clean.
8 hours were the shorter days, I'd say. Yeah, we were sort of working into the evening to get things done, but I think it was, out of choice, we were very much trying to power through it.
Yeah.
So we got an enormous stock pan on the boil. It was sweaty. It was sticky. One of the downsides of honeycomb is that if it's out for too long, as we've said, it gets really, really sticky. If it drops and bounces up into your shoe, perhaps, and you take it home and you take your shoe off at the end of the day and you've got honeycomb all over your sock, it's a thing that happens to people sometimes.
Yeah. Hazard of the job.
But
the sticky floors.
Sticky floors.
Because the floors are being constantly cleaned. Because it doesn't matter how well you try to make sure, it's almost just in the air. It's just something, you get bits that crack and it goes on the floor. It only takes a little bit and it gets passed around the floor and you're literally sticking to the floor. So constantly having to clean, mop the floor.
Which didn't seem to make any difference anyway. But
no, not at all. It's like one of those Velcro walls.
The smell in the office was incredible.
Well,
so you lot were all trapped in the sticky floors. We were just getting the sweet, sweet smell of honeycomb.
I think everyone will say that I was regularly coming in and just snacking on all the offcuts. That was my contribution.
Brandt, you here, grab a hairnet, grab a beard snood. No.
And I missed the was it the honeycomb old fashions that you made?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
From one batch.
With it, there's a lot of sort of wasted honeycomb, and it felt ashamed to just throw it all away. So we ended up making like a
100%.
sort of sugar syrup from the offcuts.
Mm-hmm.
Just cooked it down. Didn't use the dirty stock pan of boiling water.
No, seems like we missed the trick there.
Yeah, I know. We could have had a years supply, lifetime supply of honeycomb syrup. But yeah, no. After a long day, making a little syrup and making a little.
I think it also made an appearance in
Old-fashioned.
our Tastehead Pancake Day Championships as well. That
It
syrup.
did.
So
Oh, it did.
we
Yeah.
really
It did
were
indeed.
making the rounds.
It spanned all of the little mini seasons, Christmas, and
Yeah.
Pancake Day.
Yeah.
We should have worked it into Halloween.
One of the funny things, I say funny, it was funny from my perspective. I'm sure you hated it and hated me. Well, I wasn't laughing at it. I'll just have a chuckle underneath. Was trying to get the final cookie out without breaking it, and sometimes they would just break on their own. They would just be cooling on the side, and someone would go ding,
Yeah.
and it would just snap just from the cooling process. And yeah,
But you'd sometimes end up with the cookie itself would snap, and then you'd end up with a completed umbrella or something.
Yeah.
out randomly. It can't be that easy on the actual show. So
Yeah. As you're dropping them into the bin, the star just emerges
Yeah.
perfect. Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if anyone tried that technique. I don't know if anyone was just brave enough to across the room.
yeah. I think something that I was really proud of how we did was just managing the project. So I think it's time to let Lucy jump in and talk about the amazing work that you did in, just managing what was quite a logistical challenge across the board, and just, working with a client, as we often do, that hasn't done anything like this before, and we're trying to kind of reassure them, explain the process, but kind of answer their concerns and etc. What was it like from your perspective?
A lot of Amazon fragile tape was purchased. I think their sales must have gone through the roof. But to project manage, the clients were incredible. So really, it was such a collaborative process. It was really one team. Obviously, we're always working on one goal with our clients, but I think they felt the pressure as much as we felt the pressure, that how, sort of the gravity of the show and sort of this challenge that we sort of were really sort of, we work with agility all the time, but this felt like sort of a real reactive process. And we would love to plan as much as we can in advance, but I think the key here was sort of day to day things changing and sort of absolutely sort of working to sort of meet those sort of new requests, those new requirements in terms of what sort of the client was looking for. And I think it's fair to say on most of our projects, we were a food sort of development agency. So we are developing things for taste, for consumption. So we roughly know, hopefully by now, when we send sort of samples out or clients come in and taste things, we roughly know potentially what feedback we will get. We taste things. If we feel happy and confident, we can sort of run through the client of the process. We were sending away things that obviously they were able to be consumed, but that was not their sole purpose. They were there to be sort of utilised. So we'd send them away not knowing. And again, as you said, we'd all practiced it so many times, not knowing sometimes the feedback we would receive. So I think we couldn't sort of start pre-planning for that, which obviously sort of meant every day and night we would sort of be checking feedback and sort of reacting to it.
And I remember we came back from Christmas and the whole of January was booked out for this pretty much.
Yeah.
We had one other big project. It was those two projects that we basically just had to block out the whole of January. Mostly for this, I think is fair to say. So it was a real commitment in the run up to the show being recorded.
I remember we had a couple of new starters in January, and their first experience of Tastehead was just, right, get that hairnet on, get those gloves on, the next 2 weeks, this is all you're doing.
And the owner's still with us, so couldn't have been that bad, hopefully.
Should we clap for Leona?
There we go, she gets one.
This one's for you.
Yep. Just going to say, one of the things that, because January was all blocked out, it's not that we didn't have room to do another project, which we absolutely did not have room in the kitchen to do another project, but we also had to do an entire allergen clean down of our kitchen, which sort of resulted in us sending off samples, getting them tested, making sure absolutely everything was perfect and spotless and had no traces of anything, because what happens if someone shows up and they're allergic to shellfish, and we've just been working on a shellfish product, or nuts, we've been working on snack bars. You know, it could have been anything. We work with literally every ingredient under the sun.
And when it's 400 odd people,
There's
obviously
chances
the chances, the more people that you're making this for,
Yeah.
the chances really go up. So that's a really good point. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. So there was no one allowed in the kitchen, out the kitchen, harness, everything, like full on.
When Brandt wanted a snack.
Obviously,
I would get suited up with hairnet. It was worth it.
It was
for
worth
sure.
it for one bite.
I think it'd be fair to say as well, in terms of sort of the way we were working on this one, was making sure that the information was really flowing to the client, for the fact that these were so fragile. As soon as they hit air, they were starting, you know, we were talking about this ticking time bomb of them sort of disintegrating. And it only takes the people coming in, we can really brief and tell them, you know, when you're handling these, we will send them to you like this, please make sure you take care. But Netflix is such a beast of a company, we don't know who's going to be handling them just before they're handed to contestants or people testing them. And we're very aware that, one, we want it to work, but it reflects on us, doesn't it? So if it's been out in the air and no one realises and they're not working, then, you know, it's our reputation on the line. And obviously, you know, we sort of want to protect that, but also for the game to be a big success. So I think that was a real point of making sure that we sort of informed the client as much as possible about how to handle them. Please don't drop them. And just sort of the best ways of working with them, and sort of again explaining, and again it comes into sort of our stage 1 process of why certain avenues didn't work. And you know, they're looking at it from a TV point of view, aren't they? And they want it to look like this, or it wants, you know, and we're looking at it from sort of the technical side. And we get this across all projects where we're like, you know, we want it to be everything to everyone, but where are we going to make concessions, and how are we going to sort of make it work for the show? And I would say, I'll take my hats off to you guys, that I don't think we had to make many concessions over time.
Just a lot of honeycomb.
A lot of honeycomb. I would say sort of the end result looked incredible. I'm going to big everyone up because I didn't make any, so it looked incredible. They taste nice, Brandt. You love them. So yeah, they sort of, and again, as Brandt mentioned, we were very thrilled to hear that it sort of panned out the way that we were hoping for. So I think, yeah, it's down to you guys, but it sort of, went to plan in the end.
It's as much as we're going to get out of her, isn't it?
That's the only compliment
we've ever got.
I know. Brandt gave me a script before I came on today. He was like,
I suppose it went to plan in the end.
Yeah, well done. Few of me like, come on guys, we've got to get this done.
But we know what you were saying earlier about obviously there's trying to make it work, trying to make it look right. That's kind of the difference between the actual Squid Game show and the game show. Obviously, in the actual show, it just needs to look fine. No one's actually necessarily eating them. It's just for TV. This is actually, because it's real people doing the competition, they've got to actually be able to mimic what they saw on the show. So if they're licking the back of the cookie, it needs to be edible. It needs to not taste horrendous. They need to actually be able to complete it as well, and it look right on screen. So that's kind of the difficult balance there.
Yeah,
because I think it'd be fair to say, you guys said to me, if it didn't need to be edible, it would have been a quicker fix to make it sort of more consistent, more uniform, you know, so maybe more sturdy even, because people aren't consuming it. But obviously we had to be really true to sort of the nature of the product and the fact that people are potentially, I mean, licking the back, doing what they can, really. Maybe just eating around the edges, Brandt, your favourite. So
the whole podcast is just going to be us talking about how Brandt nibbling at the cookie.
I do feel that was my main takeaway from all of this. the whole month of January.
I'm just hoping we get sponsored by a honeycomb.
A few takeaways.
Yeah. I was going to say, like you mentioned, Netflix is such a sort of big company with so many parts to it. We went to the studios. We were lucky enough to get invited to go and see the sets and see sort of how it was going at the time. This was before or after the actual cookie game the Dalgona game had been.
I think it was before, actually.
It was before, so we were still on tenterhooks there. But the enormity of the place, it was like aeroplane hangars back to back to back to back that have all been dressed to the nines, the exact set from the show, the amount of people working in the sort of back with banks of screens and everyone giving it their all. And so it really put into perspective how important it was that we did manage to sort of tick all the boxes that we needed to tick along the way. Because if we messed up at any point, it would have been an entire production that would have been either delayed or sort of put the kibosh on. It would have been a real disaster if it hadn't gone as well as it had.
We weren't nervous already. We were after going there.
God, yeah.
But the sets were, like you said, it really transported you, as it should do, I guess, to the show. And Eaman and I, got to go on the set where the game will be played, and a few other ones as well. And it just, we're very excited.
Did you give any of the games a go?
They weren't set up for it. There was no one in the back.
I wish you'd have had a go
gun.
on the tug of war. On the
No, but Eaman would have come home in tears. I would have probably injured him and he wouldn't have been able to make the final Dalgonas. So I think probably for the best, isn't it, really?
Looking at the equipment that you used,
yes,
it was easy enough to land on the ring cutters that would cut the outside kind of disc.
Well, you
of
say
the
that.
cookie.
Yeah, well,
you say that,
we went.
Everyone had their preference.
Yeah. So there are a few different thicknesses. There are a few different heights. Obviously, as you press them into the hot honeycomb, they start to heat up. Once they start heating up, the honeycomb sticks to it. It doesn't set fully around it. And then, aside from personal preference, we were governed by what size tins we could find as well. So this was, again, because it was quite a tight timeline, we had to make sure that everything was sort of off the shelf available, and where we made concessions, like Luce was saying earlier, it very much on, okay, we can get them made. We have a recipe now. What size are they going to be? How snugly are they going to fit into a tin? Are they going to come with the needle next to it? Is there going to be something on the bottom that stops it from wiggling about in the tin? These are all things we had to consider, and we had to test so many different sizes and shapes and times where if it's in the tin for too long, it might start sort of, it's obviously not airtight, so it starts getting sticky again. Now it's stuck to the bottom of the tin, and what are we going to do here? So you didn't want anyone to be sort of out of the game before they'd even had a chance to go. So really, there was a lot of back and forth on the stamps we used and the presses, and absolutely every facet of it required a lot of looking into. Even
just getting the actual cookie shape, lots of moving parts there and things to look at. But then let's talk about the actual kind of the cutters that stamp the shape, because I know that we had to get several rounds of those developed for various reasons. Talk about why that was.
Well, I think the first and foremost reason is that the first ones that we got didn't come with this little carry handle. So we were dipping our fingers into 175-degree honeycomb every time we tried it. So very quickly we started requesting that they put handles on the back of the stamps, which I'm fully on team handle. I don't know.
I think everyone was on team handle. No, but we went through different sizes of cutters. So this was the sort of final size, I think, that we settled on. We tried smaller ones, but we weren't getting, because that was the kind of crucial thing, was getting the correct pass rate. And that was really trying to make sure that it looked the same as it did on the show, and then also getting it to a point where the right amount of people would get in with each shape. And this slightly larger shape enabled some people to get through on the umbrella, but not everyone. The smaller ones, they were maybe too intricate, that kind of thing. So it was like a big back and forth. Probably went through like 5 or 6 different shapes.
And just even as you were using them, some were flexing more than others, so
requesting some stronger metal for the
we had to do that, didn't we? Yeah, the first ones that had come through,
flimsy.
They were really flimsy, and like I say, they picked up heat so quickly, so they'd stop being usable after a few rounds. So we had to get thicker metal. And that obviously helps it keep its shape once you stamp it as well, because as you say, it sort of floods in from the side as it's still warm. So we had to make sure that we were trying to get as consistent as possible across as many as possible. And I think even just of the umbrella, 6, 7 iterations of the shape and size. So the circle and the triangle were pretty standard. But
how many shapes of triangle are there? Really?
3.
That's sides, not shapes.
How many? So obviously about 4, 5, 6 different shapes sort of within the umbrella. We tested so many. How many recipes and methods do you think it took to land on. Because we always have recipe sheets across all projects, and some span from version 2, some are version 6, 9, 12, 30. I have a feeling this one was pretty high.
Yeah, well, so the recipe sort of plateaued after a while, where we decided this is as good as we can feasibly get it. This is the most scalable. This is the most consistent. The methods changed quite a lot. So I think all in, it was about 21 different methods and recipes altogether. So yeah, like I say, we tried Yorkshire pudding tins, we tried rolling, we tried
even just the different combinations, because there's only so many variations you can have of sugar, glucose, water, and bicarb. But we tried
golden syrup.
Yeah,
we tried
exactly.
Straight sugar. We tried water and
dry
sugar,
caramel method, wet caramel methods, different ratios, different temperatures.
Whether you stir it at certain points or not. And I mean, it was when we settled on the final one, which was actually no stirring. It was a bit of a relief for us anyway. Because trying to do so many pots at the same time and stirring and making sure they don't burn.
Well, because you're also taking out a variable, and that's part of when you're trying to get something more consistent, is look at how many variables there are, and you've got to try and address it. And if you can remove one of them, great. Because you're right, with any honeycomb method, some people will tell you to add more of the raising agent, but just stir for a bit longer. Whereas others will say less of it and just do a quick stir, and then that's it.
Yeah.
And what, we found was go with the least amount that you need, don't stir it, and then you've taken out one variable.
Yeah, it was all about just removing the variables so that anyone could at any point jump in and sort of be a productive member of the team, because the instructions are laid out there. We weighed up, I don't know what it was, probably 20, 30, 40 batches at a time,
30,
all stacked up in pots. So yeah, we were ready to go, firing on all cylinders. It was just the amount of people we could squeeze into the kitchen to get everyone doing it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, even weighing up the batches was messy.
Yeah.
Making balls of glucose, which was a trick that Brandt taught us.
I know a few tricks.
Got to make a ball.
Got to make a ball, which was, I mean, everything. The only thing anyone was talking about, make a ball, make a ball.
Well, just to explain this, I worked in a factory where we made fudge.
We don't need to explain.
Oh, I'm going to. So this is my trick. This is my contribution, other than just eating all of the offcuts. So, and when you're weighing up these 40 kilo batches of fudge, sort of glucose and syrups are really difficult to handle, because if you try and pour them, the glucose is so slow, and then you can't just stop. It's like a half coming out of the bucket still. And so the trick is you have a bucket of cold water, and you briefly dip your hands into the cold water. You shake off the excess cold water, and you go in, and there's enough kind of water still left in your hands that you can go in and quickly roll the glucose into a ball and put it into the scale that way. So it doesn't stick to your hands, and you can sort of do it more accurately. And so, that was my contribution.
Yeah, no,
it was a strong contribution.
In the end.
The thing is, we were doing this in January, so at the start of the day, the kitchen was quite cold, and I've never been quite so alarmed as when I went to your bucket of water that you're using to soak your hands, and it was warm. It was just really off-putting.
I felt it worked better that way, but I also quite liked freaking out the rest of the people in the kitchen.
I just wasn't prepared for it, is all. It's just the last thing I expected.
Well, thank you, guys. It's been great to cast our memories back to this project and go through it all. Got one final question for each of you. If you had to do one of the shapes, which one would you choose? Ladies first.
My pragmatic head says the triangle, but I would just love the glory and would dine out on it if I did the umbrella. So
it's ballsy though, going for the umbrella.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a good idea.
Probably isn't, but
What about you, Paddy?
Well, I mean, just based on, I kind of would like to go with Lucy on the glory front, but I've tried too many umbrellas to know that it's just basically impossible. I reckon I'd give a good go at the star, though. I reckon I've got it in me.
Reckon you got the star?
I reckon I got the star.
That's bold. I'm going triangle. You guys are
but
aiming way too high.
Easy route.
I'm not brave enough to go for the umbrella, but I would go for the star, because I remember being proud of myself that I managed to do one of the stars. I think I sort of figured out a little technique of sort of breaking it off in sections once you've done a few of the lines. So, I wouldn't be brave enough for the umbrella. But
you're all
give
lying
the
to
star.
yourselves. You go for the
Okay,
triangle.
fine, I'll
go for the triangle.
Everyone's going triangle.
I'm staying strong.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much, guys. Paddy, get the honeycomb on. We'll have some old fashions after this.
Let's go.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. And for more information, please visit tastehead.com. We hope you join us for our next episode.